Woman saves a lion from a python. What the 5 lions did next was incredible. The heart-wrenching cry of animal pain broke the dawn silence at the Calakmul Nature Reserve. Mariana Vega Soto, a field biologist with 8 years of experience studying big cats, felt the blood freeze in her veins. During her long research expeditions in the Mexican jungle, she had heard many sounds of nature, but never one that conveyed such suffering and desperation. It was a sound that didn't belong to the normal predator-prey cycle. It was something different, something disturbing. Without thinking twice, Mariana left the base camp where she had spent the night, leaving behind her research equipment and taking only her machete, a basic first aid kit, and her camera. The roar had come from the southeast direction, near the main watering hole she monitored as part of her study on hydration patterns of local wildlife. Mariana knew the area well, but she still advanced cautiously. The dense vegetation of the Chiapas jungle limited her visibility to just a few meters. After 15 minutes of forced hiking, the sound became clearer and more defined. It was no longer a continuous roar, but a series of intermittent growls, growing weaker. Mariana stopped in her tracks when she finally saw what was happening in a small clearing about 20 meters away. The scene was so shocking that for a moment she was paralyzed, unable to process what she was seeing. Karim, a majestic male lion approximately 7 years old, part of the reintroduction program for African big cats that the reserve had initiated as a conservation experiment, was writhing on the ground, trapped in the deadly embrace of an enormous reticulated python. The snake, which Mariana estimated to be more than 6 meters long, had wrapped its powerful coils around the lion's body, concentrating on its thoracic area and neck. With each breath, the coils tightened more, gradually restricting the feline's ability to expand its lungs. "Impossible," Mariana murmured, knowing that reticulated pythons were not native to Mexico, but to Southeast Asia. The most likely explanation was that it was an illegally released exotic pet that had managed to survive and grow to monstrous proportions in the reserve's ecosystem. It wasn't the first case of invasive fauna they had documented, but they had never recorded a specimen of that size or such a confrontation. Time was running out for the lion. Mariana could see how its movements were becoming increasingly weak, its glassy eyes showing signs of imminent asphyxiation. The park's protocol was clear: do not intervene in natural predation processes. But this wasn't natural. It was the direct result of human irresponsibility in introducing invasive species into vulnerable ecosystems. The decision Mariana made at that moment would forever change her life and challenge many of the non-intervention principles she had defended throughout her career as a conservation biologist. With her heart racing and adrenaline flooding her system, she advanced toward the scene of the mortal combat. As she approached, Mariana quickly evaluated her options. The python had begun the constriction process and wouldn't voluntarily release its prey. The lion's eyes, previously full of ferocity and life, now showed a look of resignation that squeezed Mariana's heart. She recognized Karim as the dominant male of the reintroduced lion pride, a crucial specimen for the program's success. "Easy, Karim," she whispered, though she knew the animal couldn't understand her. "I'm going to help you." Wielding her machete, Mariana approached the snake's head, which was positioned near the lion's neck, ready to swallow it once it stopped moving. The python, focused on its prey, didn't perceive Mariana's presence until she was less than a meter away. When the enormous snake turned its head toward her, showing its sharp teeth, the biologist knew she was in grave danger. With a quick but precise movement, the result of years of training in handling dangerous fauna, Mariana managed to secure the python's head with a forked branch she picked up from the ground. The snake writhed violently, momentarily loosening its grip on the lion. It was the only opportunity she would have. Using her machete, Mariana wasn't trying to kill the snake but to force it to release its prey. She struck with the blunt side of the blade on the middle part of the python's body, where its coils were most tightly interlaced. The impact caused a reflex contraction that, for a crucial instant, loosened the deadly embrace. "Now, Karim, move!" Mariana shouted, as if the feline could understand her words. To her surprise, the lion seemed to comprehend the situation. With what little strength he had left, Karim took advantage of the momentary loosening to free one of his front paws. His claws found purchase in the jungle floor and, with a spasm of energy born of desperation, he managed to partially roll, freeing more of his body from the constrictive embrace. The python, sensing it was losing control over its prey, redirected its attack. With astonishing speed for an animal of its size, the snake released the lion and lunged at Mariana. The biologist barely had time to interpose the machete between herself and the reptile's open jaws. The python's teeth screeched against the metal of the blade as Mariana fell backward, carried by the momentum of the attack. What followed were the longest seconds in Mariana's life. Lying on her back on the jungle floor, she struggled to keep the machete blade between herself and the snake's head, which was writhing, trying to reach her. The python's strength was overwhelming, far exceeding what Mariana had anticipated. She felt her arms giving way inch by inch under the relentless pressure. It was then that the unthinkable happened. A thunderous roar resonated in the clearing, followed by the impact of 180 kilos of feline muscle against the python. Karim, recovering strength from some hidden reserve, had jumped on the snake, sinking his powerful fangs into the middle part of its body, while his claws tore at the scales. The lion's surprise attack gave Mariana the seconds she needed to get to her feet and back away. The battle that unfolded before her eyes defied all logic. The lion, which moments before had been on the brink of death, was now fighting with renewed ferocity. The python, caught between the feline's claws and fangs, writhed, trying to either wrap around him again or escape. Mariana knew she should take this opportunity to retreat to a safe distance. All her training screamed at her to withdraw and let nature take its course. But something kept her there, fascinated and horrified in equal measure by the mortal combat she was witnessing. After several minutes of fierce struggle, the balance tipped definitively toward Karim. The python, with multiple wounds on its body, had lost much of its constricting strength. With a last, powerful swipe, the lion managed to immobilize the snake's head against the ground. His jaws closed around the reptile's skull with pressure exceeding 600 kilos per square centimeter. A dry crunch signaled the end of the battle. Mariana remained motionless, waiting for the lion, now victorious but injured and potentially unpredictable, to move away from the spot. To her amazement, Karim raised his gaze directly toward her. There was no aggression in those amber eyes, but something that Mariana, despite her scientific training, could only interpret as recognition. The great feline stayed like that, staring at her for what seemed like an eternity but was probably only seconds. Then, with movements evidently painful from the constriction injuries, the lion moved away from the python's remains and began to limp toward the thickness of the jungle. "You're welcome, majestic one," whispered Mariana, allowing herself a small smile of relief. The biologist knew she needed to document what had happened. She took out her camera and began photographing the python's remains, measuring its length and taking tissue samples for later analysis. They needed to determine exactly what subspecies it was and how it had reached the reserve. She also photographed the marks of the battle on the ground, the lion's footprints, and any evidence that could help reconstruct the extraordinary event she had just witnessed. Absorbed in her scientific work, Mariana didn't immediately notice the sounds approaching from the underbrush. When she finally looked up, her blood froze in her veins again. Emerging from the vegetation, 5 feline figures advanced toward her with determined steps. She immediately recognized the members of Karim's pride: 3 adult lionesses and 2 subadults, a male and a female approximately 2 years old. Mariana's survival instinct screamed at her to run, but her training reminded her that fleeing in front of predators would only activate their pursuit instinct. She stood up slowly, trying to appear larger while evaluating the most viable escape route. However, the lions showed no signs of hunting behavior. There was no typical dispersion to surround the prey, nor the crouched posture prior to attack. The 3 adult lionesses walked directly toward her, with the subadults following at a short distance. Mariana held her breath when the lead lioness, whom she recognized as Nala, Karim's mate, stopped less than 5 meters away. The powerful feline sniffed the air, undoubtedly catching Mariana's scent, mixed with that of Karim and the dead python. Her eyes, of a deep amber almost identical to Karim's, studied the biologist with disturbing intensity. What happened next would challenge all expectations and knowledge about big cat behavior that Mariana had accumulated during her career. Nala took 2 more steps forward, remaining at an alarmingly close distance. Then, to Mariana's absolute amazement, the lioness slightly lowered her head, in a gesture that could only be interpreted as a bow or a greeting. She maintained that posture for several seconds before turning and walking toward the python's remains, which she began to sniff meticulously. The other lionesses and the subadults followed similar behavior. Each approached Mariana, maintaining a respectful but close distance, slightly inclined their head, and then headed toward the dead snake. None showed aggression or fear toward the human presence, something completely atypical even in lions habituated to people as part of conservation programs. Mariana remained motionless, barely breathing, as she tried to process what she was witnessing. Her years of ethological studies offered no satisfactory explanation for this behavior. It was as if the lions were thanking her. The scene became even more extraordinary when, after thoroughly examining the python's remains, the 5 lions formed a kind of circle around Mariana. It wasn't a hunting circle, but rather as if they were protecting her. "This is impossible," she murmured to herself, with a racing pulse but strangely without fear. The lions' behavior defied all conventional explanation. It was as if they understood exactly what had happened, that Mariana had saved Karim from certain death, and now they recognized her as an ally, a benefactor, part of the pride. For approximately 20 minutes, the lions remained in that protective formation around Mariana. Occasionally, Nala or one of the other adults would emit a low growl, almost as if they were communicating among themselves, or perhaps with Mariana. The biologist, overcoming her initial amazement, took advantage of the extraordinary opportunity to take photographs and detailed mental notes of this unprecedented behavior. Finally, as if responding to some invisible signal, Nala emitted a short but powerful roar. The 5 lions, in perfect synchrony, began to retreat in the same direction that Karim had disappeared. Before completely entering the vegetation, Nala stopped and looked one last time at Mariana, their eyes connecting in a moment that she knew she would never forget. When she was alone in the clearing, Mariana finally allowed herself to exhale the air that she seemed to have been holding for hours. Her legs trembled, not from fear, but from the discharge of adrenaline and disbelief at what she had just experienced. "And nobody is going to believe this," she said aloud, though only the birds and monkeys of the jungle could hear her. With trembling fingers, she reviewed the photographs on her camera. She had managed to capture images of both her confrontation with the python and the extraordinary behavior of the lions afterward. She had visual evidence of something that would challenge established paradigms about animal behavior and big cat cognition. The return to the base camp was like walking in a dream. Mariana advanced mechanically, her mind still processing what had happened. When she finally arrived, she found her research team in a state of alarm due to her prolonged absence. "Mariana, where the hell did you go?" exclaimed Javier Mendez, the director of the Lion Reintroduction Program. "We were about to organize a search team." Mariana opened her mouth to respond, but the words got stuck in her throat. How to explain what she had experienced? How to convey the magnitude of that experience without being taken for crazy or, worse yet, for a researcher who projected human behaviors onto animals? "I need to show you something," she finally said, offering the camera to Javier. During the next few minutes, the face of the experienced zoologist went from disbelief to amazement as he reviewed the photographs. Other team members gathered around, their expressions reflecting a similar mix of emotions. This defies everything we know about big cat behavior," Javier finally murmured, running a hand through his graying hair. If it weren't because I've known you for years, and I know you're the most rigorous and skeptical researcher on the team, I would think this is a montage." "I can barely believe it myself," Mariana replied. "And I experienced it firsthand." The images clearly showed the sequence. Mariana confronting the python, the lion freeing himself, the subsequent battle, and then the extraordinary behavior of the pride. She had even managed to capture the moment when Nala lowered her head toward her, a gesture that had no documented precedence in interactions between wild lions and humans. "We need to verify Karim's condition," said Javier, quickly returning to his role as program director. "And from the photos, he seems to have suffered significant injuries from the constriction. The direction they went is northeast, probably toward the cave they've been using as a den," Mariana pointed out. That same afternoon, a monitoring team equipped with drones with thermal cameras located the pride. Karim was alive, though clearly weakened. The program's veterinarians debated the possibility of intervening to treat his wounds, but finally decided to maintain close surveillance without direct intervention, unless his condition significantly worsened. In the following days, Mariana meticulously documented her observations of the incident, analyzing each photograph and writing a detailed report. The python samples confirmed it was a python reticulatus, native to Southeast Asia, probably illegally released into the reserve when it reached an unmanageable size for its owner. The most extraordinary thing, however, was what happened a week after the incident. Mariana had returned to her usual monitoring routine, though now with the additional precaution of always bringing a field assistant. She was installing a camera trap near one of the watering holes when she heard the unmistakable sound of vegetation moving behind her. Before she could react, Carlos, her assistant, dropped his equipment with a choked cry. "Don't move," he articulated in a tense whisper. Mariana turned slowly. Less than 10 meters away, Nala was emerging from the underbrush, followed by 2 of the other lionesses. The felines advanced directly toward them, with no sign of aggression, but with evident determination. "Back away very slowly, Carlos," Mariana instructed, keeping her voice calm despite her heart hammering against her chest. "Don't run under any circumstances." To the amazement of both researchers, the lionesses stopped about 5 meters away. Nala, in behavior identical to what Mariana had witnessed before, slightly lowered her head. Then, to greater surprise, the lioness dropped something she was carrying in her jaws. When the lions backed up a few steps, Mariana could see what Nala had deposited: a piece of meat, probably from some cervid they had hunted. "Did they just bring us a gift?" stammered Carlos, incredulous. "It seems so," replied Mariana, equally astonished. The behavior continued in the following days and weeks. The lion pride began to show an unprecedented pattern of interaction with Mariana specifically. When she was in the field, the felines often appeared briefly, maintaining distance but clearly recognizing her. On 3 more occasions, they left similar gifts, pieces of freshly hunted prey. Karim, who recovered surprisingly well from his wounds, began to appear as well. On one particularly memorable occasion, the majestic lion simply lay down about 20 meters from where Mariana was working, apparently standing guard while she collected data. The phenomenon attracted the attention of ethologists, zoologists, and animal behavior specialists from around the world. The Calakmul Reserve became a focus of scientific attention as researchers from prestigious institutions arrived to document and study this unprecedented behavior. "It's as if they had formed an interspecies alliance," explained Dr. Elena Ramirez, a specialist in animal cognition from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, during one of the many scientific meetings that were organized. "There is a clear recognition of Mariana as a specific individual, and what appears to be an expression of gratitude or reciprocity for having saved Karim. Big cats have more complex cognitive abilities than we had assumed," added Dr. Robert Johnson, a primatologist who had studied social behavior in large carnivores. "But this goes beyond our current models. It's almost as if they understood the concept of debt or gratitude." For Mariana, however, Beyond the scientific and professional interest, the experience had a deeply personal dimension. She had connected with these magnificent predators on a level that transcended the usual relationship between researcher and subject of study. Each encounter with the pride reminded her of the fragility of the barriers that humans had erected between themselves and other species. 6 months after the initial incident, something happened that definitively solidified the extraordinary relationship between Mariana and the lions. She was conducting fieldwork alone, something her superiors had authorized after months of consistently non-aggressive interactions with the pride, when she heard gunshots in the distance. Hunting was strictly prohibited in the reserve, which meant it was poachers. Following protocol, Mariana activated her radio to alert the rangers. While waiting for a response, she decided to approach cautiously to obtain visual information that could help locate the intruders. She was moving silently through the vegetation when, suddenly, she found herself face to face with 2 men armed with high-caliber rifles. "Look what we have here," said one of them, a burly man with visible scars on his arms. "A nosy ecologist." "This reserve is a protected area," Mariana replied, trying to stay calm while evaluating her options. "Hunting is prohibited, and the rangers are already on their way." "By the time they arrive, they won't find anything," replied the second hunter, younger but equally threatening. "Not us, nor you." The situation escalated quickly. The men, evidently concerned about the legal consequences of being identified, decided that Mariana represented an unacceptable risk. When the younger hunter advanced toward her wielding a machete, Mariana knew she was in mortal danger. It was then that the deafening roar resonated in the clearing. Not one, but 5 coordinated roars that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. The hunters froze, frantically turning to locate the source of the sound. Emerging from 5 different directions, the complete pride of lions appeared among the vegetation. Karim, imposing, and with his mane fully recovered, led the group. Nala and the other lionesses positioned themselves strategically, while the now juveniles completed the circle. The felines didn't attack immediately but maintained their positions, growling threateningly with all their muscles tensed. "Shit. Shoot them!" shouted the older hunter, raising his rifle. Before he could aim properly, Karim jumped. His 180 kilos of feline muscle impacted against the man, instantly knocking him down. The rifle went flying as the hunter screamed in terror. Surprisingly, the lion didn't use his fangs or claws to inflict lethal damage. Instead, he kept the man immobilized under his weight, roaring directly in his face. The second hunter tried to flee, only to find himself blocked by Nala and another lioness who cut off his path. He threw his machete and dropped to his knees, raising his hands in surrender, his face distorted by terror. Mariana observed the scene with a mixture of amazement and shock. The lions had appeared exactly at the moment of greatest danger, as if they had been watching over her. Even more extraordinary, they showed restraint that contradicted all predatory instincts, limiting themselves to immobilizing the hunters without causing lethal harm. When the rangers finally arrived, attracted by the gunshots and roars, they found themselves with a scene that no training could have prepared them to handle. 2 poachers effectively arrested by a group of lions, who kept the men immobilized but unharmed. With extreme caution and under Mariana's direction, the rangers managed to handcuff the hunters and move them away from the area. The lions, as if understanding that their task had concluded, gradually retreated toward the vegetation. Before completely disappearing, Karim and Nala looked directly at Mariana, in what could only be interpreted as a gesture of farewell. This extraordinary incident, documented by the rangers' body cameras, quickly became international news. The images of lions apparently acting as guardians of a researcher revolutionized the public perception of the intelligence and social capabilities of big cats. For the scientific community, the case of Mariana Vega and the Calakmul lion pride opened new horizons in the study of animal cognition, interspecies relationships, and the capacity of certain mammals to recognize and reciprocate beneficial actions. What we are witnessing challenges our traditional definitions of animal intelligence, Mariana explained during a conference at UNAM months later. But it's not just about problem-solving or tool use, but about deep social understanding, recognition of specific individuals of another species, and something that, if it happened among humans, we would undoubtedly call gratitude. The lion reintroduction program in Calakmul, initially controversial, became a model of success in conservation, attracting international funding and support. The story of Mariana and the pride-inspired educational and awareness programs about big cat protection throughout Mexico and Latin America. For Mariana personally, the experience transformed not only her career, but her understanding of the place of humans in the natural world. The connection she had developed with these magnificent predators challenged the established categories of relationships between humans and wild animals. 2 years after the original incident with the python, Mariana continued her work in Calakmul, now as director of the Big Cat program. Her relationship with the pride remained unique. The lions clearly recognized her, often appearing briefly when she worked in the field, as if greeting an old friend before continuing with their activities. Karim and Nala had a new litter of cubs, 3 little ones that grew healthy and strong under the protection of the entire pride. On a particularly moving occasion, the lion couple appeared at the perimeter of the camp with the cubs, as if they were introducing them to Mariana. "It seems they want to show you the family," commented Javier, observing the scene from a safe distance. "Or perhaps," Mariana replied with a smile, "they're introducing the little ones to someone they consider part of their circle of trust." This extraordinary story of interspecies connection continues to develop in the Calakmul Reserve, reminding us that perhaps the limits between species are not as rigid as we had assumed, and that even the most formidable predators are capable of recognizing an act of kindness and responding with a loyalty that transcends the barriers of evolution.